Hello and welcome to Strong Start Sundays. I am your host, Dr. Rachel Edoho-Eket, and I am so excited that you are here with us tonight. As always, please come into the chat. Let us know your name, where you are watching from, and what your role or position is. We are super excited to bring this topic to you tonight. It's all about delegation. But before we jump into it, I have a very special guest that I'm excited to hear her insights tonight. Her name is Dr. Tangi Scales. She is the principal of William B. Wade Elementary School in Maryland, and she also is a Maryland Association of Elementary School Leaders Connected School Leader Award winner. Welcome, Dr. Scales. How are you?
Hi, thank you for having me.
We
I
are
am well.
awesome. Awesome. Now, I wanted to ask you, are you on spring break yet?
No, not yet. 2 more weeks to go.
Yes, us too. We have 2 weeks left and we are holding on strong. Though I do know a lot of people are on spring break right now. So if you're on spring break right now, we're wishing you a wonderful time. We're just a little bit jealous of you, but we know our time is coming too. So we hope that you're taking that time to rest, recharge, take care of yourself, spend time with your family and friends so that you're ready for what's to come, which is a very busy, quick rest of the school year. So we appreciate everyone for spending time with us tonight. We have a great topic, but before we get into that topic, I want to remind you about relational intelligence, the key factor to exceptional school leadership. This is a book that Dr. Johnson and I wrote together. We're so proud of it. It really is for school leaders to think about ways that we can build positive relationships with everyone that we serve, our staff, students, and families, in a way that really supports the learning in our buildings and builds a strong community. So thank you to everyone who has purchased a copy of our book. We hope that you are enjoying it. And if you haven't got it yet, you can get it on Amazon. I'm really excited to see Otis Kitchen on tonight. So good to see you, Otis. And thank you for joining us. I know you told me you are on your spring break today. So thank you for spending 30 minutes with us tonight. We hope you're having a great break so far. So tonight's conversation is all about delegating. And I told Dr. Scales before we started, sometimes principals have to think about control. I will admit, I am one of those people who sometimes struggled with control. And a lot of what was happening to me was I was attempting to take on every single task in my building. I wanted to have my hands on everything. I felt like it was quicker for me to get things done if I did them myself. I felt like it would be the way I wanted it to be if I did it. And I really had to relinquish control several years ago because number one, that's not a good way to lead. And number two, we burn ourselves out as leaders if we do not leverage the skills and talents that are within our building. Just think about all the wonderful people that we work with every day. The skills are immeasurable. And so we really need to tap into the people in our buildings. Dr. Scales, what do you think? Have you ever struggled with control when you were like a newer principal or an AP?
I don't think so. Like, I am a big vision person already. So I do want things done a certain way, but I found that I know my weak areas. So I'm a big picture person. So I need people to like, you ain't think about this, you ain't think about that, to fill in these gaps for me. So it works out perfectly. Now, I'm a worker bee. So yes, I would say at times I'm like, I'm not about to ask anybody. I could just get it done real quick. So yes, that has been a problem. So yes and no. Yes.
I think that's fair. And, a lot of us who've done our strength assessments through Strength Finder have achiever as one of our top strengths. So I think that is natural. Is that one you have, Dr. Scales?
That's one of mine.
Yeah, mine too. And sometimes we know it can work so well in our favor. But I think that's part of the reason why we're in the principal seat. But the other side of that skill is sometimes we overwork ourselves. So it's good to have that awareness of what our strengths are and how we can use them to best, serve in our roles. So I want to start thinking about delegating. And we have really three main ideas we want to share with everyone tonight. And I want to start off with our first idea. Our first strategy for delegation is really to focus on the outcome and not just the task. And here's what I mean by that. If I were to walk up to one of my colleagues and say, I want you to organize math night, that's not a good way to approach the situation, because the person is going to say, number one, I'm too busy. Teachers are incredibly busy, just like administrators are incredibly busy. Our teachers and staff are busy. And so approaching them with a large task to say, I need you to do this, is not a good way to get buy-in. However, listen to this way of asking someone. If I know that a teacher has a prowess in math and they're passionate about teaching math, if I approach the teacher and I say, hey, we really want our families to get a better understanding of how math objectives are taught in school so that their parents can use them at home and reteach and support their learning. And we would love for you to co-create and design a night that has that in mind. The teacher is much more likely to say, that sounds amazing, because number one, I know the purpose. I know what I'm supposed to do. We want our families to be able to support their children. And number two, I am attached personally to that purpose because I love math and I love teaching it. So you're going to get better buy-in when you allow people to, when you empower people to do what they do best. And so, Dr. Skills, I know you're really skilled in this area. So what can you add to that?
So one is, when I think about delegation, I actually like to frame it a little bit differently. I prefer to call it autonomy. Delegation sometimes sounds like you're just passing work off to someone else, but autonomy means that you are empowering people to lead with you. Everything begins with trust. And if you're going to allow others to take meaningful responsibilities, you have to trust your team and they have to trust you. When trust exists, people feel safe, they take initiatives, and they grow into better leaders themselves, right? The second thing is recognize you cannot, like you said, do it all. Leadership is not about one person carrying everything. It's about building a team that believes in the collective efficacy, the vision that you all set out together, the belief that together we can accomplish more for students than any others just by themselves, right? So at the beginning of the season, I'm starting to think about the leadership and what each person can do.
Yeah, that's really powerful. I love that you centered on trust, because that really is the foundation of everything that we do. Dr. Johnson and I talk about trust as the first chapter in our book, and how can we build trust? And number one, trust is about relationships, and we have to spend time getting to know people. That's number one. We really can't just see people as teachers or staff in our building. You know, we're all dynamic. We all have a lot of different things that we're interested in doing. We all have different strengths. And so part of trust is saying, I see you beyond just this role, this one part of your life. You know, we're very multifaceted people. People have families, people have interests, people have children, people have pets, people have lots of things that are important in their life. And so it is important that we spend time getting to know the people and building that trust. That way, when we want to say, hey, like, we want everyone to be a contributor in our school, and teachers need autonomy. You know, no one likes a micromanager. I don't know if you've had an experience working under someone who's a micromanager, but most of us have, and it doesn't feel good. It really doesn't. It feels like someone is always watching over your shoulder. And with autonomy, it really gives everyone the understanding that, hey, my principal trusts me to do good work, and I'm going to keep doing good work because of that. So it's like very cyclical. Everything works together when you have trust at the foundation. We have a couple of comments that I wanted to share. So Otis is sharing, we should definitely get buy-in. It's about empowering people and building capacity and helping others grow into strong leaders. Yes. I love that comment. And Candace has a question for us, and this is kind of like a little different, but she wants to know, what productivity tools do you recommend that teachers use during delegation? I think that's a great question. And I think there's lots of different tools that you can use, but I am definitely a proponent of AI and thinking about ways that can help support in planning, or just doing some of the tasks that take a long time, like data collection. There are definitely tools for that. But delegating for teachers is also important because you're working with a group of wonderful people on your team. You might have 2, 3, 4, 5 different people. And I know in our school, when teachers delegate, a lot of times they do it during their plannings. So there may be some teachers who are really interested in ELA. And so they are taking on some of the planning for the science of reading and making sure that if there are a group of students who are struggling, that there are additional activities that can support the learning. There are also teachers who are really passionate about math or science. And I've seen our teams delegating based on the interests of the teachers on the team. And I think that's a great way for teachers to delegate amongst each other. What do you think, Dr. Skills? Would you add anything to that?
So I was just saying, and I don't want to get ahead of myself, but yes, finding what are their interests. So to me, it's very big. I'm very big on, I'm not here just to be served, but I'm here to serve others as well. So I always want to find out, what do teachers find to be interesting? What do they want to lead in? I don't want to assign anything. I want them to be excited about the work. So one of the things I always try to do is, like you said, build these relationships. And I find that I'm a detective in a way. Like the more I talk to them, the more I find out what they're interested in, what they like, what they dislike, how they like to lead, because everybody has like these friends at school. We see these little TikToks and we see on Instagram where those two people are walking and, they're going to see the principal. So I have two teachers just like that. I'm gonna just shout their names out, Miss Mack and Miss Gates. They're like, can we do this? Can we do that? Because they're telling me, and they built a trust. I built a trust with my teachers where they feel like, hey, I have a great idea. Can I do it? So I'm not stopping anybody from doing what they want. And also where there is some excitement about an area, I try to figure out in my own schedule, I try to figure out in my own resources, what can I do to help them do what they want to do to ensure that my students are successful? It's like a reciprocation type of thing.
Yeah, I love it. I love that you have teachers who are taking the initiative, and we all have teachers in our building and staff who have great ideas, who are like, hey, I want to do this. And as leaders, we should be empowering people to do that, because ultimately, like you said, if it's something that's going to benefit the students in our building, then we need to do it. That could be the breakthrough that a child needs. That could be a breakthrough that a family needs. And the ideas are already in our space. We just have to utilize the talents that we have. And you're right, that's a perfect segue into our second strategy. And that is really around finding out people's passions and their strengths and connecting it to the work that we know needs to be done. And so I know, Dr. Scales, you have a great example of this. And I love that you tied it to interviews and how, as principals and assistant principals, we can leverage our interviews to find out who are some of the great people who are going to contribute to our community. Can you share a little bit more?
Yeah. So, one thing about me, I love to shout out people. So one of my principals I used to work with, his name is Ben Cohurst. So I always hated interviewing with him because they seem like laissez-faire kind of interviews. But I still this question, and I always start with it. And it is very simple. Tell me about yourself outside of work and school. I'm still that question from him, and I tell him I use it every day, because that's when I can find out everything about this person. I can find out what they like, what they don't like. I can find out who my readers are. I'm like, I always say, they say I'm a reader. I'm a reader too. So I'm like, what book are you reading? I get all the scoop on the best things. I find out who are my gardeners. I find out who's my cheer coach, who's going to do art club, because they're saying these are things that I'm passionate about. So when they're trying to find a job, I want to be there to give them their passion. It's here in this building right here. And the other example is just that when I just started a new building this year, and I tell them, I'm not going to be telling you what to do. I'm going to give you the autonomy. We're working together. And this year in particular, these teachers, they really took a hold of that and they leaned into it. So like I said, I have a teacher, she was 7 months pregnant, and she did a movie night. over 200 people attended. She had twins and she was pregnant with twins. And it was a big to do and it was amazing, but she planned it. She planned the movie. She got the license. She insured the food, but she had a team also. Then the second one was I was just talking about the Black History program. Wherever I go, I'm going to have a Black History program at my school. But guess what? I didn't have to do it. I had Ms. Diaz and Mr. Webster. They just went right ahead. And that only that is sometimes when we as principals say we want this, it seems like we're telling people. But when the teacher leaders do it, they're getting my whole staff, which they did. They got my whole staff to participate. And it didn't seem like work. It seemed like we were getting together as a community, uplifting our students and our families and ourselves and having fun with it.
I love it. And like you said, when you have people who are passionate about the work, it doesn't feel like extra work because this is something that is important to people. And just think about it, you had over 200 families showing up for this event. That's really special. And it's because of the work that your staff put into that. And I'm really glad that you have an amazing staff. I also have an amazing staff that just steps up and really looks out for our students and our families in the community. You know, this reminds me of something else. When I was coming up as a teacher leader, I was coming out of a kindergarten classroom. My former principal said to me, you know, Rachel, I would love to see your strengths in helping to facilitate a family night. And again, she was very purposeful. Here's what we need to do. Do you think you can support this work? And that was my first time really putting on a large scale event for the school. And I can say the skills that I learned as a teacher leader are the same skills that I brought with me into the assistant principalship and now into the principalship, that collaborating, that problem solving, you know, what happens when something isn't quite right? How can we adjust and pivot to make the event ultimately what it needs to be? And so that kind of leads us into our last point. And this is a really important part of empowering our staff and delegating our staff. And that's around making sure that as the administrative team, we are putting in checkpoints and supports in place for our teacher leaders as they are empowered to do many different things across the school. You know, there's nothing worse than saying, hey, I'm going to let you do it, and then hands off, no support. Right. That's not what we are talking about. What we're talking about is a very intentional way of empowering our staff, but making sure that we have supports in place for our teachers and staff. So Dr. Scales, tell us a little bit more, then I'm going to lift up a comment.
Okay. I also want to lift up one thing before I tell you a little bit more about my framework. I wanted to make sure you understand, Mike Tyson has a quote. He says, discipline is doing what you hate to do, but doing it like you love it. So sometimes we still have to give these tasks, especially when I'm thinking about my assistant principals and my leadership team, some things that they don't want to do. But we have to model, how do I work when I have to do tasks I don't want to do? Leadership is not just about assigning, but developing. So I talk about this because we have to coach them through. So the huddle framework is important because it helps understand how to coach people through when we are leading and when we are delegating, or like I say, when we're sharing the autonomy. A part of it is empowering people. So my friend and I, and here's another name, her name is Deidre Barnett, Principal Barnett. We developed a concept where we just showed assistant principals at MAESP assistant principal conferences about the huddle, which stands for Help, Understand, Develop, and Lead. The huddle reminds us that leadership is a team sport. We help by supporting, understanding through listening, develop through coaching, and lead by empowering others. When we huddle together, we build stronger leaders. The help phrase helps us with active listening and support, and leadership can be isolating, right? And sometimes people just need space to process and think. Then to understand is where we are. And sometimes we have to engage in these courageous, equity-centered conversations, and we must understand the context, but we're leading and guiding the whole way. And that's the development phrase. I want to be clear. I have 2 APs. So the way I lead them and support them are 2 different ways. So we're differentiating the support for not only staff and not only for students, but other leaders. Finally, we lead by aligning our decision-making and our coaching. So I like to think of just leading and coaching through every situation. Like you said, we're not just giving them something and then walking away. I always say we have to inspect what we expect, right? So we're not walking away, but we're walking with them the whole way. I also want to say that some of this information I got from NAESP because I am a national certified coach and I just took a class with NAESP Principal Pillars.
Awesome. Shout out to NAESP. And thank you, Dr. Skills, for sharing that framework, the huddle framework. I was in your session just 2 weeks ago, and I really loved what you and your partner were sharing. It was very, very helpful to me as a current practitioner and principal and thinking about how I can apply that huddle framework in my practice every day. So I appreciate you sharing that. There are a couple more comments that I want to lift up. Thank you so much, Cedar, saying an excellent discussion on relational intelligence and effective delegation. We definitely have to focus on empowering others while strengthening our leadership capacity is exactly what our educators need. Thank you for sharing that great feedback. I also want to share, Otis has another great comment that we have to support our staff through that process. That's so true. You know, when people feel supported, they are more confident to grow and lead. And I can share that is true of my own leadership journey. When my principals would ask me to take on new initiatives, you know, I always felt supported by them. They would always check back and say, Rachel, how are you doing with this? What do you need? How can I support you? You're doing amazing work. Or they might say, here's something to think about. And what are your thoughts on how we can pivot? Because this changed. So what would you do? You know, so that was very important too, for me to understand things don't always go perfectly as we plan things. And sometimes we have to be flexible and figure them out. Mm-hmm. So I love that. We have some other people who are coming from Turkey. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. You know, I told Dr. Scales, this is an international podcast, so we really appreciate you being here tonight. All right. And we also want to share for just again, the importance of when we're delegating, making sure that staff feel supported in this process, because ultimately when we support our staff, then we get better outcomes on the end, and so do our families and our students. So that's really why we're doing this work. So we want to share a couple last points and really think about how to summarize this. But before we do, I want you to think about this essential question. And the question is, what is something that you have done over the past week that you could have delegated to someone else on your team?
That's a good one.
Right? That was a good reflection question. And that's something that I've thought about too. Because oftentimes, as Dr. Scales and I said, we both have achiever in our top 5 strength for Gallup strengths. And so it's very easy for us to pivot and just do things, right? If someone asks me a question, it's very easy for me to say, oh yeah, I'll get that done for you. But what sometimes happens is the more that we do that, then the less time we have to focus on what I call the big rocks, to focus on our instructional leadership, to focus on other things, because we are doing tasks that other people may be best suited for, or that have the capacity to do them. So I do want you to think about that question. What's something in the past week that you could have delegated to or provided someone else with an opportunity to lead and to learn and to grow, that you might now, coming into your next week, thinking ahead of how you can empower people in your buildings to do that? So that's just a reflection question. You don't have to answer it, but I do want us to be thinking in that mindset about that. All right. So
I want to shout out though.
Yeah.
I want to shout out. Can I shout out a couple more people?
Please.
I have the best APs in Charles County, Mr. Enrico and Miss Taylor. And I just want to be clear, the job of the assistant principal is to assist the principal. So if you're in that role, assist your principal. Ben Cohurst, he also told me his assistant's job is to make him look good. And our job as principals is to make our superintendent look good. But I also want to shout out your instructional leadership team if you are able to have one of those. Now, this is a resource teacher. So I have a math resource teacher, a reading resource teacher, and a gifted/testing resource teacher. I have something where our principals visit other buildings. So I am preparing for this. It's Tuesday. I'm getting everything ready on my own. Here I am being the achiever, and I could pass out some of this information and do so they know it's coming. The three ladies, Miss Bell, Miss Brown, and Miss Washington, they said, let us help you. So when you empower your people, you don't even have to ask sometimes. They step up. The goal of leadership is not control. It is about building capacity. So I didn't even have to say, hey, this is coming up, get this, They said, let me get this for you. What can I add to your PowerPoint? How can I help you get prepared? So trust is the foundation of leadership. And when we trust and the trust exists, autonomy becomes possible.
Awesome. And when I heard you talk about this, Dr. Scales, that to me really underscored the trust that your staff has in you and that you have in your staff. When people are willing to go to bat for you, to step up and say, wait, we see you doing this. How can we help? That's really amazing culture that you are building in your school. So
thank you.
Yeah, that's just amazing. I love that you shared that. And shout out to our leadership team at Waterloo and our amazing assistant principal, Elena. We also work really well together, our special educators, our math coaches, our literacy coaches. It is a team effort to run a good school. And sometimes people don't always understand that because there's a lot that happens behind the scenes. When you have a well-run school, you don't always see and understand the ins and outs of it. But you are so right. It is a team effort. And it requires everyone to step up and share their strengths in the school. So I want to also share just a couple of shout outs that we have that are coming in. Thank you so much for joining all the way from Indonesia. We're so glad that you're enjoying this conversation. We're glad that you're here. Arun, thank you so much. I'm so glad that you are here with us tonight. We hope that you are enjoying this conversation. Otis is giving you your hand clap, Dr. Scales. He is loving all of your contributions and just wonderful, great examples that are practical on the ground happening in your schools. That's what we're here for. So thank you for that. And then we also have someone saying that delegation is teamwork and a great source of synergy. And that is so very true. I like to say teamwork makes the dream work. And so I'm glad we're all on the same page with the importance of encouraging people to lead, encouraging people to use their strengths, because that's how we keep people engaged in school. This is a very hard time for teachers, for staff, for administrators, for our students. It's tough in schools. And so each of us want to feel good about going to work every day. And one of the ways that we can do that is through relational intelligence, but also in making sure that people have opportunities to work through their strengths, truly. So we're getting ready to wrap up. I told you it was going to be fast, Dr. Scales. Didn't I say that? It's fast, right? So we have about a minute and a half left. So we want to recap what we shared today. Our first strategy was around delegating outcomes, not just tasks. So we're not going to say to someone, I want you to organize this event. We're going to say, here's the outcomes that we're looking for. How can you contribute your great ideas to making this happen? That really personalizes the work. Yes, that personalizes it. The second one is about matching our staff and teachers' strengths to the work, right? So if we know someone is interested in technology, then why not allow them and encourage them to lead work on AI in our buildings? Why not have people coming through their classrooms to learn from each other? That's the best sort of PD, is when teacher to teacher have an opportunity to learn, when staff can kick in, right? So teachers are leaders and teachers are reachers. I love that. Thank you for that. That's great. We also want to share our third strategy, which is that as administrators, we need to provide support. We need to make sure that we are uplifting our staff as they are stretching themselves, taking risks, putting events together, and really flexing their strengths. And so with that, we want to just encourage you that the strongest schools are led by teams, not individuals. We want to remind you of that. And I also want to share that our next Strong Start Sunday episodes are going to be April 12th and April 26th. So please save the date right now, April 12th and April 26th. We're looking forward to seeing you. I want to send a huge shout out to Dr. Scales for joining us tonight. Please follow her at Dr. Scales in the house. She's on Instagram. I know she's also on LinkedIn at Dr. Tangela Contessa Scales. So we're just so thankful that you were here to share your expertise with us. Otis, thank you for saving those dates. That's right, April 12th and April 26th at 7 p.m. EST. And we want to close by wishing you a wonderful spring break. We know many of you are on spring break, but some of us have 2 more weeks left, and we're going to do it. We're going to enjoy our spring break. We're going to rest and recharge and end the school year in a very strong way. And finally, I want to thank Teacher Goals for this amazing platform, an opportunity to share what is working in schools with some of my favorite people in the whole wide world. So I wish you a wonderful start to your week and have a great Monday. We'll see you later.
Thank you so much for having me. And I think that you're amazing, and I love your platform.
Thank you, Dr. Scales. Thank you, everyone, and have a great night.